Hey guys, it's your boy Peterloo, Real Wheel Deal, and today I have one of the rarest S2000 wheels on the planet, the ASM Clearways made by BBS. So stay tuned, we're going to deep dive in the wheel right now. So first things first, big shout out to my buddy Johnny Rowe for dropping off this wheel. So, have a good friend like Johnny dropped it off so I can get a good look at it and make this video for you guys. And also, before you continue forward, if you guys want to hit subscribe, comment below, let me know what you think of the wheel. Make sure you guys hit like, make sure you get notifications so you guys can see the newest wheel videos coming out, okay? So before we get started, to give you guys a little bit of background on ASM, originated from the Autobox 7 group. So Autobox 7 group is a company that owns all these car accessory shops in Japan. They also own the largest accessory shop in Japan called Super Autobox. Really gorgeous shop. They shop everything there. So they got tons and tons of car accessories. So what you don't know is that company actually formed up a long time ago in 1947. And they started specializing in, car accessories, but they also were making oil. They're also making certain tires. So that's where the name Autobox comes from. It's actually an acronym. So Auto is appeal, unique, tires, and oil. So box is batteries, accessories, car electronics, and last part service. It's kind of like an all comprehensive one-stop shop for that. And they're in business for quite a few years. 1980 is when they renamed themselves to Autobox. Super Autobox has gone to do other things. They've been able to sponsor and build also race cars. They've even been able to build their own cars that they spec'd out. So read a lot more about that in their history. But what's really important is the ASM component, which is what I want to get into. It was imagined in 2003 by the current general manager of ASM. So Kanayama-san, he went to the main Autobox group and he said he wanted to dedicate a shop to trying to achieve some racing goals, which was going to be time attack. He envisioned that idea in 2005. ASM Autobox Yokohama opened, which is a store that you could visit if you're ever in Japan. Beautiful store, lots of people I know have gone. What they do is they specialize mostly in S2000 and Recaro. So those are the two things that they're focused on. And his concept was he wanted Autobox to primarily focus on the S2000 chassis, make the best that it is, compete in time attack, and try and push the envelope of the S2000 while also supplying Recaros. And also you probably heard they had a lot of special edition ASM Recaros that they work with Recaro directly on. Now that they've expanded, ASM has also reached out to lots of other companies to build specialty parts that kind of match the criteria and the design that their company envisioned when they first started. So the most well-known S2000 is of course the ASM Demo Time Attack S2000. That's the original car Kanayama-san owns, and he further developed to take the time attack. So some of the most recent years when they're developing it, it was running in 2016, 2017, 2018, running heavily in the Tsukuba time attack. It actually disappeared for quite a few years. I think for 5 years they were just working on it, or it was kind of retired. But I saw that earlier this year, they actually took the car back out with new improved aero. So wheels round on it were these guys, the ASM Clearways made by BBS. And what you might think is, if you're an S2000 fan or you're S2000 owner like me, that this wheel was just made by ASM. But actually there's another history of another company involved called Clearways, but also we have BBS involved as well. So this wheel is a collaboration kind of between 3 different companies to envision and build this ultimate time attack wheel, as they say. So starting with the Clearways, in 2012, this wheel was envisioned by Minoru Tanaka, and he had reached out to try and find a manufacturer to make this wheel. So his main goal was to make the most ultimate rigidity time attack wheel possible. From further design and working, he found out and reached out to BBS, and he started making this ultimate time attack wheel. Through that, he created his own brand, Clearways, with the intention of making forged wheels just for time attackers. And his main purpose was he wanted to sell direct to time attackers who utilize this wheel to its fullest extent. So what you guys gotta understand is the philosophy of this wheel, more than any wheel I've ever featured on the channel, is 100% time attack focused. So they looked at the means of time attack and they tried to see what was the most issue they were having on the circuit, and number 1 was actually rigidity. So a lot of companies were making forged wheels and they were making them as light as possible, but what they noticed was the rigidity of some of these super light wheels were actually reducing the lap times of the cars. So I'm going to go into a little bit of technical details that we'll talk about later a bit more. Basically what happens is when you're on the circuit and you're hitting the corners really aggressively and you're on the track, your wheel is mounted here through the lug nuts. Through camber and cornering, the inside wheel, when you're kind of on the outside, I guess, let's say we're turning left and the outside load's on this side, the inside of that wheel is actually dealing with the most load, and the inside of the other wheel is dealing with the most load once it's cambered. The point of highest stress is on the inside barrel here, which is the furthest point from where the wheel is mounted. So imagine from that, there's quite a lot of flex and deflection if all the tightest points here and you're mounted at this point here. They recognized that rigidity was one of the most important aspects to doing time attack for a wheel's purpose. So they decided to go with a goal of setting a weight that they deemed was really really good for a time attack wheel. So for example, let's say in a certain size it said 8 kilograms, then what they chose to do was they could forge the wheel with BBS, and let's say they, for example, could get down to 6.5 kilograms. They would choose to use the other 1.5 remaining kilograms that they saved beyond their goal to increase the rigidity of the wheel to prevent this deflection. And once the deflection was fixed, because the wheel flexed less, the tire could utilize its ultimate grip, which allowed it to corner significantly better, which could really shave off some time in time attack. And if you guys have ever seen the time attack they do in Japan, almost every gram, every G, every contact patch matters for shaving the time. Some of these guys have been chasing a 1/10 of a second or less for like years and years and years. And somebody like me who have been out doing time attack, I can tell you, like, I've chased some seconds for a really long time, lots of different setup changes just to chase those crucial sub-seconds. So reaching out to BBS, definitely, you know, at BBS, really popular, famous company, but BBS is a division in Japan called Washi Beam. So a lot of BBS's forged offerings are forged in Japan. And another thing that's special about BBS's forging, similar to some other ones I feature on the channel, is that it's die forged or closed forged, they call it. And that's where the die hits a solid piece of metal in an enclosed area. And the whole shape and face of the wheel is also embedded in that die. So it's not like they have a blank stamped die that they CNC. This face of the wheel is shaped in the die that you're using to forge it with, so that all the features of the whole face of the wheel are shaped like that. Of course, being forged in Japan, this makes this wheel also JWL and VIA certified. Clearway offered it in a couple sizes. The most popular size is the 18 by 10 and 18 by 10 and a half. They have two specific sizes just for that, because it was a time attack centric wheel. What they want to dedicate to it, first, having really big brake clearance. The holy grail of brake clearance, people would say, is the R35 GTR brake caliper. That's very hard to clear on an 18-inch wheel. So I want to make sure they achieve that, because if it cleared that, it would clear any big brake caliper. And along that 18-inch, it was also offered a 16-inch, which is a really popular size for time attack segment for a certain class of vehicles. So those are the only two sizes of diameters they offered, with a varying amount of widths. So now that Clearways is established, and they called theirs the Clearways TT10F, ASM was planning to run their ASM demo car in the Tsukuba Time Attack 2016, 17, 18, and they were looking for a suitable wheel. And I think they went and they searched high and low, and they heard about Clearways through it, but obviously the spec and the size of that wheel wasn't catered to the S2000. About 6 years after the initial Clearway TT10F, ASM reached out to them and they got their own special set made. Put a picture of it up here on their car, and even now today you see their demo car is wearing that special set of wheels. And I think a lot of people are starting to find out about this wheel, and unfortunately it's discontinued. They introduced it in 2018 for the public sales. I heard the first run they only did 40 wheels, which is 10 sets of wheels. So that's why I'm saying this is one of the rarest S2000 spec wheels I think on the planet. They might have done subsequent releases of them, so I'm not really sure the exact count, but that first batch, and I haven't seen very many in the first batch, and I think this might only be the second set here in Canada. I think the first set that did arrive in Canada actually got sold back down to the States. So as far as I know, this is the only set in Canada here. So the ASM special version does have some changes they wanted to do that were different than the Clearways. First thing, obviously, is size. This one is an 18 by 9.5 plus 50, very high offset for S2000 in 5/114 obviously. And what's special about this size is not only is it good for possible stock fitment, if you want to fit it there with a lot of camber, a little bit of rolling, but it also fits really perfect with their ASM ID design kit for their front and rear over fenders. Another thing they tried to do to make this wheel focused, already with the additional good brake clearance, when you have a high offset wheel, that reduces the amount of brake clearance possibly, because this comes so close up to the hub. But they want to make sure that here they were able to clear their ASM AP Racing Time Attack big brake kit. Another change that they had was a center cap. So original Clearways, they weren't available with a center cap because it's just a pure time attack wheel. But you know, ASM, heavily influenced by design. They want to make sure everything looks good, everything looks proper. They said that theirs had to run a center cap. And even though it was produced by BBS, they weren't going to run a BBS center cap. They wanted to run a center cap that they were comfortable with. So it actually took them a further 6 months to develop the wheel because they wanted to run a center cap. What they got in the middle here was an NSX NA1 Type S center cap, would fit in here exactly. The special gray metallic color that they have for this wheel, it matches perfectly with the wheel center cap color of that original NSX NA1 Type S wheel. So I'll put a picture of that wheel up here. Essentially, this wheel is made to run that Honda OEM center cap. Funnily enough, that original set of wheels, the NSX Type S wheel, was also made by BBS. So, you know, they're kind of keeping it in the family, which is something I really like. And the last minor features they have, obviously, are some insignias here. So we'll do a close-up of it later, but you can see this is forged, this is ASM, and this is Clearways, and this is S2000. So this is pretty much an S2000 specific wheel, which is crazy to produce because they produced this, I think, in 2018, almost a decade after the S2000 ended production. they produced an S2000 specific time attack wheel. So since then, ASM has had really good recognition for everything done for the S2000. So they try to adopt that same philosophy to other makes and models. So currently they're doing development for, they did have some for the H6 FRS BRZ, and now I know they have some for the Miata. So ASM is definitely branching out past the S2000, but obviously anybody who's an S2000 fanboy like myself, you know ASM, it's all about the S2000. Okay, so that concludes a lot of history related to both ASM, Clearways, and how it's made by BBS. So now we're just gonna do a deep dive in the wheel. I'll show you guys some of the features that are really up close on it. So here, first thing right away, you notice is a 10-spoke wheel. It doesn't sound very special, but what you might not know is because that sounds like 5x114, essentially to maximize rigidity of a bolt pattern of 5, you could do 10 spokes because it has these cross spokes away. You see how this is away and it's not intersecting with this lug bolt here. That actually increases the rigidity by quite a bit. You can have it pass right through the opposing spokes. Another thing I kind of like about it is the lip. It looks really unique. ASM, because they have a design that's very like OEM or OEM plus centric, it just looks very clean. They kind of step in, then in like this. It has this little bit of a degree turn here. Actually looks a lot like the S2000 CR wheel or the AP2 V3 wheel. It has a lip very similar. Now I'm looking at it, it looks very similar to the Kaiser Silver of the S2000 or the Honda S2000 CR wheel or the later AP2s. Because the time attack wheel, obviously you want to have the most weight savings possible. 100% cut relief holes, something we've already seen in the past. C28, another very light wheel utilizing this. Also with the spokes, you definitely have the spoke side cutting. It's uniform. It's a symmetric spoke cut all around. So all of them do have the side cutting, which further reduces weight, increases the surface area to reduce the heat soak of the wheel. Of course, I talked to you guys about the engravings here. So this is ASM, S2000, JWL, like I said, and here it says Clearways, the sub company, and Forged. And here I want you to see that this design here in the middle of the center cap holder is really nice. It protrudes out a bit to kind of hold that cap, and inside here has a little ridge, so it looks very, very OEM centric. It looks like it's ready to hold an OEM center cap. And there's another special tip about this wheel that I wanted to bring up. Makes it very, very, very time attack focused. If you look inside of the lug holes, they have these kind of steel inserts here, but not only do they have the steel inserts for strength, so because the wheel is being put on and off very roughly for time attack, they chose to have it unpainted. Why they did this is because when you take a brand new set of wheels, put it on the car, go out for a really hot lap, the very first time that happens and then your brake rotor gets super hot, it heats up all the paint on the wheels, the contact with the lug nut actually starts kind of boiling and cooking, and it could strip off very quickly. So it starts adhering to the wheel, reduces the torque rating of the lug nut by a little bit. So you're actually getting a little bit of wiggle or wobble possibly. Clearways chooses to never paint that surface. They didn't want that to be a risk. So everything about this wheel was well thought of to be time attack focused. Other than those features, just the color, this is a custom grade metallic they do. So it looks really, really nice. When I'm looking at the wheel, it looks kind of like it's a uniform color to me, where it's the same, but because of the heavy metallic flakes in it, it shows kind of all the facets of the wheels. So you're looking at it, it looks really, really nice. Kind of like a Kaiser Silver for the S2000 OEM color. Or what happens is, I guess it kind of looks like the NSX Type S wheel because the center cap looks good in there. And now I'm going to turn the wheel to the side, which has some really, really remarkable properties. Fully finished, so it has all this gloss black paint, which looks really, really nice. I would think it was a base layer they're painting, but actually I think it's something they further did to refine the finish of the wheel. Inside of here, right in this grip here, I'm touching it. It's so grippy and aggressive and strong. It's like really, really rough and really coarse. I would say this is probably the most focus I've ever seen on the contact strip of any wheel company I've done. So I've seen some with some knurling, I've seen some that had paint reduced, or I've seen some that's been cut in, but to have with this special kind of grip finishing, this is something that is new to me and I haven't seen before, which really, really pushes the idea that this is really trying to cut down those nanoseconds on this track. So back here, it looks really, really nice. First thing I noticed right away is that this is actually masked off really well, but it does have a nice, really smooth finish. So contact on the back can be really, really smooth. There's no paint or anything to disrupt the contact to the brake rotor, since all the heat's can be transferring from the rotor to the wheel. And back here, to have every cut here for these relief holes, this looks really extreme. Looks like they put in a lot of work to make sure that this was clean. And here, look, it even says AP1, AP2, S2000 centric. And here it has the size 18 by 9.5 plus 45. And down here, it says BBS. So you know it's forged by BBS. And you can obviously tell back here, they have the steel inserts in place to keep the wheel super strong. Back of the spokes, lots shaved off, no fuss or anything. And down here, really, really special. They have their normal Jala sticker, which is standard, but here it says Japan made in Japan. It has a forged sticker, an authentic BBS hologram sticker, which looks really, really cool. All right, so next we're gonna do, we're gonna weigh this guy off. Okay, it's gonna turn my scale on, zero it out. And now we're gonna put this guy on there. 18 by 9.5 plus 45. So a really light wheel in this size normally is around 18 pounds. So this guy right on it, 18 pounds. So this would weigh similar to, I guess, a T37 SL in this size. With the increased rigidity of this wheel, I would say this is really good weight savings. 18 pounds for 18 by 9.5. All right, so that concludes my in-depth review of the ASM Clearway BBS wheel, one of the rarest S2000 wheels on the planet. 3 companies, ASM Autobox, Clearways, BBS, coming together synonymously to create the ultimate ultra rigidity time attack wheel. Tried and tested on time attack, trusted by time attack perfectionists, tested on the ASM demo car, record breaking, multiple years, right here in front of me. So, you know guys, thanks for joining me. Hit subscribe, comment below what you think of this ultra rare wheel. And you know, if you have an S2000, hopefully maybe one day you can have a set of these on your car. So thanks for tuning in guys. We'll chat with you guys soon, okay? Bye.